Hi, my name is Dr. Daniel Reeders. This presentation is a re-record of a previous presentation from October 11th, 2020. This is a more compact form and it has some extra goodies and is easier to listen to than the whole live presentation in terms of your time commitment. You can learn more at www.medicalshamanism.com to get on the mailing list for future offerings and community and connection. Hi, my name is Dr. Daniel Reeders, and I was asked to do a presentation on shamanic healing of trauma. Have you ever experienced sitting in front of your patient and thinking to yourself, is this really for me? I'm not doing what I came here to do in my life. And how much am I really helping my patient? I can keep getting more certifications and going to more CME courses, continuing education, but it seems like something is missing. Maybe I need to change my business model. Or maybe just this is the way it is, this problem is way too big. If you work in trauma, you may even recognize this is a little bit of trauma-like talk. Welcome to Shamanic Treatment of Trauma. As a healthcare practitioner, we are all healers. So the naming of medical shamanism is really a misnomer because the medical field was birthed out of shamanism. So the stark truth is that we're already healers and we're already shamans. I like to just point out that today's framing, the content, is going to be of an Inca lineage from South America. And the major work we're going to be doing is in becoming trackers, diagnosticians. So let's step right into ceremony. I'd like to first start with some bumblebee. So the way you do bumblebee is you put your hands over your face, put your thumb in your ear, at least this is one way, and you just hum like a bumblebee. Please join me. Hopefully no one's watching you and think you're having a spaz attack. And then I'd like to take you into some breath work. So let me explain how it's done. The exhale is always longer than the inhale. So let me guide you. In for 3. Hold. Out for 5. Hold. In for 3. Hold. Relax. Out for 5. Hold. Relax. Let go. In for 3. Hold. Out for 5. Hold. In for 3. Hold, out for 5. Hold, in for 3. Out for 5. We're going to change it up a little bit. Alternate nostril. In for 3. Hold, out for 5. In for 3. Hold, out for 5. In for 3. Change. 2. In for 3. Change nostrils, out for 5. In for 3. Easy, out for 5. Take a breath in, blow it all out. Take a normal breath in, look up at around 30 degrees with your eyes closed, and dissolve, merge. Come back to me. Now that we've calmed ourselves and hopefully got out of our stress brain, I would like to go straight into ceremony, keeping to the frame. 2 rattles, 1 to represent masculine and 1 to represent feminine. To the winds of the south, the literal, the domain of the reptile brain. Great serpent, wrap your coils of light around us. Protect us with your coils of light. Teach us to shed the past the way you shed your skin in a moment. To walk softly on the earth, belly to belly with the Great Mother. Teach us the beauty way. You're the one who lies belly to belly with our sweet mother. To the winds of the west. 1 second. To the winds of the west. The domain of the limbic brain, the mammal brain, the emotional mind body. Mother Jaguar. You, the apex of the jungle. Teach us the way of fearlessness. You, the great tracker. Let us go deep into the jungle where very few dare venture. You with the great sniffer, being able to smell truth from untruths. Teach us the way of peace, to live impeccably. Show us the way beyond death. Aho! To the winds of the west. Whoops, we just did that. To the winds of the north. To the domain of the gray matter, the soul kitchen, hummingbird, great grandmothers and grandfathers, ancient ones. Come and warm your hands by our fires. Whisper to us in the wind. We honor you who have come before us and you who will come after us, our children's children. Hummingbird, teach us your ways, motion and stillness. You can turn effortlessly on a moment, although you appear still. You are not designed to fly from Brazil to Canada and back you do so. You don't know the word impossible. You feast only on nectar. Show us your way. To the winds of the east, Spirit, great eagle condor, come to us from the place of the rising sun. Keep us under your wing. Show us the mountains we only dare to dream of. Teach us to fly wing to wing with the Great Spirit. You can see the minutest detail and yet see the big picture, the curvature of the earth. You fly above an obstacle when you see it. Teach us to fly high like you do. Aho! Mother Earth, we gather for the healing of all your children, the stone people, the plant people, the four-legged, the two-legged, the creepy crawlers, the finned, the furred, and the winged ones, all of our relations. Great Mother, you take all of our waste and turn it into food. Our mandate is to become earth keepers, the other half of the contract. Aho. Father Sun, Grandmother Moon, Inti Tai Tai, the Star Nation, Great Spirit, you who are known by 1,000 names, and you who are the unnameable one. Thank you for bringing us together and allowing us to sing the song of life one more day. Has our medical system dismissed healing as not scientific, unworthy, foolish, and perhaps dangerous, even though it's in our basic teachings? Have you dismissed your ability as a healer? Over the last decade, I have transformed my life and my career. Now I mentor medical professionals globally to become the powerful healers their patients have been longing for. May I tell you one of my stories? It may seem strange that I am a cardiologist, an electrophysiologist. It's very serious business, working inside the heart. Having performed well over 10,000 closed chest heart surgeries and procedures. Now I'm speaking with mental health professionals how to treat trauma, PTSD. It's mind-boggling. About a decade ago, one day, I found myself in a yoga school. The people there were saying very weird things. It smelled funny. There's incense and chanting and yoga and meditation. But the speech sounds so clear and logical. And a lot of what people were saying seemed far-fetched. I soon realized that I'd been teaching patients about stress and sleep and relationships and empowering them as a cardiologist. But I knew nothing, not much about these things. I was overweight. I wasn't sleeping well. I felt so bad all the time that I didn't even know when I was having a virus fever or not. I went to sleep tired. I slept tired. I woke up tired. I was the poster child for all of these things. So I took a trip outside my professional box house and walked around the block and became curious. I became a mindfulness meditation yoga person. I took a trip outside of my professional house, out of my box, and went around the block many times. I became curious. I learned mindfulness, meditation, yoga. I became a mind body eating coach, a life coach. I had a lot of psychotherapy. I went for all sorts of healing in all sorts of places, long list. Places that I would never have considered. I became optimistic, but I was still suffering a lot. It was at times very acute and miserable. I was miserable at work and at home. One gorgeous afternoon, a friend of mine came over, a ashram buddy. He's actually a psychiatrist, Dr. Yasin Chowdhury, a friend from the ashram, the yoga school. Him and his wife came over and we spent a nice afternoon in my backyard, and he introduced me to several forms of shamanism. I listened to a YouTube on a journey by someone that became one of my great teachers, Dr. Alberto Violdo. And I enrolled in his mystery school. I trained with him and many other places, eventually became certified and took advanced courses and mastery courses. And I was still having troubles in my relationships, but I found my life had transformed and my practice had transformed, and I was achieving amazing results with my patients. In the meanwhile, I took on functional medicine and environmental medicine and became certified. Now, I help patients access their inner capacity to heal and reclaim their vitality and zest for life. I mentor medical professionals globally, not just mental health. And my love is mentoring. There's not enough mentors in this world. Listed here are some of the tools we use as shamans. You may recognize some of these: entheogens, ART, EMDR, family constellations, logotherapy, and a bunch you may not recognize. And we use all these in shamanism to treat not just trauma, but other things. I would like to just mention a little bit about logotherapy. That was, I believe, invented by Dr. Viktor Frankl, and he worked to get people into their big purpose of their life. We'll talk about this a little bit more later. The most important part here, however, isn't listed, and that's going to be the focus of this webinar, and that is tracking. That is what I would, another way to say it is shamanic sight, otherwise known as becoming a great diagnostician, learning to use your tracking skills, your mapping skills, becoming impeccable. This will assist you into becoming a healer. But the main part of this is tracking, where we will focus now. I mean tracking, imagine you're in the bush in Africa, Western talk, diagnostician. So this is to become a great, see really where the problems are, become a better tracker. So one of the things is to become a still lake. So you're not casting your ripples, your shadows on the lake. If you cast that, all you're seeing is not what's going on with your patient, but what's going on with you. And that's what you'll be working with. A healer, a shaman, is always tracking. During the tracking, we're going to make a map. We see the map our patient is on, and then we'll see a map for their best life. And so this is part of tracking also. You may say, wait a minute, how could I even have the gall, the arrogance to consider what I think someone's best life is? Shamanism, sometimes I get that. What is it? One way of talking about it's embodied wisdom. As medical professionals, we feel safe and protected in the container of the literal, like the reptile that we opened up the space with. We set bones, we prescribe pills, we do procedures, we do the DSM-5 or not, we do the ICD-10 and diagnose. And so this is, in a way, a golden cage for us, and most importantly, for our patients. Because of this, we miss the gold, the platinum, really what's going on with our patient. It's beyond a shame. A growing practice in clinical cardiology is that we're told that, doctors are expensive, so get other people that are less expensive, and it's not even really that important to examine a patient. Why not order an echo? And so the cardiologists are turned into proceduralists or supervisors. Have you ever heard, my doctor does not listen to me? Consider this to be our collective Jungian shadow. So shadow is something we deny, dismiss, or ignore, like a wart on our nose. Everybody else can see it, and that is where our troubles are. This is the way the human is constructed. And this is where the place where we need to work, but we ignore it, we dismiss it. So as a collective shadow, this is a golden place for us to work. Being a tracker is being a better listener. And so Let's give our patients what they've been longing for. There is great value in becoming a great listener. As if the doctor practitioner is a fine microphone sensor, and the greater that the professional can sense what's going on, the more clear of a picture you will get of your patient. You'll get a clear picture in their what's literally going on. Some people would refer to that maybe as body language and the words coming out of their mouth, their emotional mind, what's going on there, their soul, and other levels. So there's a mandate to become a better perceptor, perceiver, great tracker. As you step into this, you will find that you will heal and your clients will heal. There's a book called A General Theory of Love. I'd like to just use some quotes that I came across about a decade ago. The evolution of the limbic brain 100 million years ago created animals with luminescent powers of emotionality and relatedness, their nervous systems designed to intertwine and support each other like supple strands of a vine. So limbic brains are ancient, 100 million years old in development. And a footnote is they require a rite of passage to heal. Another quote, because our minds are seeking another through limbic resonance, because our physiologic rhythms answer to the call of limbic regulation, because we change one another's brain through limbic revision, what we do inside of relationships matter more than any aspect of human life. The three limbic principles: resonance, regulation, and revision. So let's get into it a little bit. To heal trauma, become a skilled listener, move them into a new paradigm or map where the old map cannot exist, and finally seal the deal with a rite of passage, ceremony of types. There's an old theory that is true and not true about the triune brain. We have on the bottom the reptile brain, and then the mammal brain on top of that, and then the gray matter, the prefrontal cortex, mirror neurons, the so-called God brain. So part of your tracking will be to track in reptile, literally, what's going on with them. Look at their body, look at their lab work, check them for mycotoxins if you suspect mold, and tick-borne illness and heavy metals and SNPs. And so this is the literal part. We call that the serpent. And notice that we open space with a serpent. And then the next archetype is the jaguar, which is the limbic brain. It's the emotional mind body. The language of the emotional mind body is beliefs, and all beliefs are just beliefs that are not true. And so part of it will be to find out, to move them into a better belief system, their thoughts, limiting thoughts, emotions. And this is where you need to be a jaguar to be able to see through the fog of their emotions and their thoughts and their beliefs, and be fearless and sniff out BS from what's going on, and be able to go further and have the courage and the broad shoulders to go where they need to go. And one of my recommendations is to not take things at face value, just to keep pushing forward, deeper, deeper, relax and hold them in that loving space. The next is hummingbird, and that's the primate or the gray matter. It's what I like to refer to as the soul body or the soul kitchen. That's the space of mythic maps of where they are in their life journey and where they could be. And so we help them find their best version of their self, which also gets into their purpose. Um, and the language of the soul is poetry, ceremony. So whenever you can, bring them into ceremony, storytelling. But unlike the same old story they've told 1,000 times that is just they're stuck in, find new exciting stories, original stories, um, art, drama, rites of passage, and so on. Those are the language of the soul. Learn to work in the soul kitchen in Hummingbird, the place where there's nothing impossible. The next level is Eagle Condor, where we can fly above and see details and see the big picture. That's the energetic. That's what I would call the poof world. A lot of people have never experienced the energetic, at least they claim to be so, that way. And then we have the other things, the lower and upper worlds, the right and left brain, the feminine, masculine. If you notice, I rattled the two for the feminine and masculine. If you can notice behind me, I moved a little bit of my altar over, which is an altar to the feminine. And don't forget, we have gut and heart brains and a luminous energy field. I know this is like a lot of theory, and I love to tell stories and do experiential things. And so I'm re-recording this to get a better information for everybody. But that's best done in an interactive forum or one-on-one or groups. So the important thing is to go through the archetypes and evaluate your patient in their literal body, the reptile, in the jaguar archetype, the hummingbird, and eagle condor. And to go sequentially through, like contiguously through them, and you do separate evaluations in each of those realms. The mandate, I like to say woe mandate because we're in such a bizarre world where we don't honor the feminine and females commonly, so-called dominator societies and business structures. It's important that we make allies wherever we go. So we don't want to, with our client and our patients and ourselves, see things as problems or enemies. We like to find out how we can neutralize them or make them our friends, our allies. So another way of looking at all of this stuff is to look at the sutra level, which is a very literal level. And we have a lot of shamanic tools for this. And you have a lot of other non-shamanic tools for that. And then, but bring it up to the Tantra, up to the hummingbird, where you learn your lessons, you get the gift, and then you pass them through with a rite of passage, a ceremony. Always at the end go to ceremony, but if you just go to ceremony, I think, without doing the lessons or getting the gifts, then you are just doing a ceremony without much meat and bones on it. And don't be surprised if your patient doesn't move as forward as fast as they could. And then the next level is Sochen, or a spirit, or the nameless one, an universal energy level. If you don't believe you have access to that, then don't work in this level until you become more competent in this level. This next slide is a slide of a collage of shamanic medicine and traditional medicine, and eventually it all kind of merges, and you say what box, because when your patient comes in and is sitting in front of you, you do what you need to do, what you're mandated to do, to go beyond just literal and go beyond ordinary states and treat your patient for what's ailing them. For example, someone may be coming in with depression, and they may be depressed because they feel the pain of all this social injustice in the world. And what is there, a pill for social injustice? How about like having them acknowledge that and deal with that? That would be something that would be doable. Also, it's a mandate. So there's, for instance, a Gayatri song, or the Gate Gate in Buddhism, where they say go beyond, and billions of people repeat these things, but it's beautiful. But if you bring it up to another level, both of these are actually a mandate to go beyond the beyond. My mandate as a full MESA carrier is to mentor medical professionals into becoming the healers their patients and they are longing for. So when you hear or see something, be curious, go further. Someone's having some discomfort, don't rush so quick to medicate it or meditate it. All of a sudden you'll start hearing things, for instance, that you would have dismissed. For example, recently I have a patient with a metastatic cholangiocarcinoma, that's cancer of the gallbladder collecting system. And she said, after about 10 minutes, I don't deserve to breathe air. I have another functional medicine physician in my neighborhood who came in to get treated for her heart. And the first thing she said was, I don't trust my heart. You bet I'm going to go and explore that. Or you may hear something like, I feel like I did something wrong and need to be punished. Well, what did you do wrong? Was it you, your lineage? And so I would go there and work with them on it. Where do all these beliefs come from? Are they personal, cultural, passed down through your family of origin, through your culture, through your tribes, through your friendships, through your professional life? Jaguars in the jungle, in the mind emotional body, have no enemies. They are fearless. They go to the deep places where few dare venture. Go beyond the well-traveled roads. learn the geography, become great mappers, great trackers. So I'm going to go and give you some do's and some don'ts, but mostly do's. The number one tool of the shaman is the gifting of yourself to your patient into the world. It gets to this thing, my doctor does not listen. Well, listen. So this is our collective shadow piece, as I mentioned. So the first do is ask for permission and consent every step of the way. In our society, people have yeses, which are often mean nothing. They are forced on them. They're not paying attention. They're done with coercion. They're done without full disclosure. Moving your patient to learning to say no is a powerful stand. Once you have a good no, then you move forward into a true yes. So always ask permission and get consent. And in general, when you're in a relationship, any type, and you see your patient dissociating, that's time to step back because they're unable to give true consent or permission because they may be in a freeze state. So it may sound strange, but always seek permissions and consent every step as much as you can go, that there is not too much consenting you can do. The next do is believe your patient, but don't collude with their story. If they say something, believe them. If you don't believe them, you've lost contact and connection with them. And it may even be a form of gaslighting. Wow, you hear things, or you believe that you need to be punished. No, you don't. No, believe them and find out why. But don't collude with their story. Don't. The next rule, my rules, these aren't necessarily taught at any mystery school I've been to, is to prepare. Know your patient, prepare yourself, become that still lake that has no ripples on it. So that's part of your preparation. And in the fields of observation, chance only favors the well-prepared mind. So prepare. That was said, quoted from Louis Pasteur. Now let's get into some meaty stuff. What is the container you work in? Well, for this presentation, I chose to work in a sacred space. And I had you do the breathing to prepare your mind to be a still lake. So when you work in a sacred space, I have to say you're responsible for creating that and maintaining it and invoking it. So you protect that and you maintain it. For your patient to feel safe and you to feel safe, you have to be safe. Become a safe human being and create a safe space. For instance, I wore this shawl as part of protection for me. I need to be safe and protected. Especially if in trauma, we often work with violence and sex. Those are taboo and everybody needs protection. The next one, you may have heard about presence. So presence means that you aren't involved in the past or the future and that you're there 100% for your client. You're listening, you're perceiving, you are a still lake. The only power we have is in the now. I think Eckhart Tolle said that, and a lot of other people have said that. So be present. Get off your phone, off the computer. Be respectful and be present. And there's many ways to get presence. Meditation and other tools help you learn presence, but it sure helps to turn off your cell phone and tell people to not bother you while you're with your patient. My next one, number 6, is a favorite of mine, and this is openness. So everybody talks about connection. Oh, we need more connection, but there's all kinds of connection. There's toxic connections. And so what I'm talking about is a soul connection, a intimate connection. Another way of saying what intimacy is, intimacy. So that you could be present and be in a cave in the Himalayas, but we're with humans. We already established that that's the most important thing we can do in life is in relationship. So connecting to your patient's soul, left eye to left eye, soul to soul, heart to heart, and other ways, and just, it's really difficult at times, and you just lean in, stay present, and stay connected. There's something called a triangle of disempowerment I'd like to just bring in a little bit right now. It was another version of that is Cartman's triangle, who was a social worker, I think from the 50s, where there's always 3 roles being played like a Shakespearean play. The perpetrator or villain, the rescuer, and the victim. 3 sides of the same coin, all disempowering relationships. So in your openness relationship, do not step into a triangle of disempowerment. Step out when you see it and just connect in this soul and loving way. Lean in. And lean out when you need to. My next favorite one is embodiment. Stay in your body. When I get into difficult conversations or difficult situations, my number one intention for that is to stay in my body. Feel my toes in my fingertips, in my breath, my heartbeat, if it's, I can do that. The smell, just stay in my body 100%. And this is really important when you're dealing with openness and with your client, patient. Be embodied. So I don't know if you've ever had the experience, but have you ever seen a patient walk in or someone on the street or somewhere, and you just see that they're not in their body, they're just not, they've abandoned themselves. Well, the best thing you can do is all of these things above that I mentioned and stay in your body. No matter, you have no control over what the outcome is, but you can have some authority or agency over you staying in your body. The next, number 8, is engage in multiple perceptual states, getting back to the literal, the reptile, the jaguar, the hummingbird, and spirit, eagle, condor. And constantly all of these things are constantly taking place and unfolding into themselves. And at the same time, see where their map is and keep mapping them to see if you can find a better map for them. Some more do's and don'ts. In shamanism, unlike a lot of psychotherapy and medical medicine, we say if you want to get better, why not today? Let's deal with this right now, whatever's alive. So also when a patient steps into my room, my consult room, I may be saying, studied their chart, looked at all my notes, all their labs, but when they come into my office, I always deal with what's alive at that moment and follow that. So getting back to this, always, so deal with, if there's some problem they're having, if you have the agency and resource, heal it today, right on the spot. Healers are trackers, exceptional listening instruments. The better listening, the more you will hear. Remember, you don't want to have your patient, my doctor does not listen, my doctor does not believe me. Then you don't have a patient, you have an enemy, and you want to turn your patient into an ally. Also, when you're listening to the story that your patient is telling you, listen to where it gets juicy, where it gets emotional, where their energy gets high. And also notice where they lose energy. These are great tracking tips. And remember, as I mentioned before, that if someone's in some sort of process, if you can hold that space and stay connected and present and embodied, keep going, keep digging further, and just say no to disempowering triangles. We talked about our collective shadows and sex and violence. They're juicy and taboo. Part of a map in the new map is trying to figure out how to get them to the new map is a third map. And let's talk a little bit about purpose and creation. Purpose is more of a masculine principle. Creation is more of a feminine. I'm not talking male and female. So in my medical practice, I always search to get people into their purpose. So I'm not talking that everybody has to do a Sistine Chapel or some great work of fame. We all have one purpose that we need to do, and that is giving the present, the gift of ourself every day, every moment, not 110%, not 90%, 100%. When you are giving the gift of yourself to your patient and your family and your tribes and nations, there's there's strategic reasons to say, I'm sorry, but it's used it as a strategy to keep your patient as a ally. But if you're always giving the gift of yourself, always doing your best, like in the 4 agreements, there's really no reason to say I'm sorry, because you have no control over what the result is. In fact, the healing may happen overnight or a year later. So just stay in the giving the gift of yourself, and moving your patient into giving the gift of themselves, even if they're in a trauma state, in a PTSD state. That is part of the way to move out of that. We'll get into this a little bit more, although this is a tracking webinar. So I've had patients that I've gotten into their purpose, and I didn't really put them on a diet, and they've just by that, they've lost 60 pounds and gotten off of their wheelchairs and off of oxygens and made the big moves in their life. For instance, changing primary relationships or going to do what they need to do. So It's really magical and it's a secret weapon, and I highly recommend that this is something that is a tool to be used. So I mentioned Dr. Viodo. I told him I was giving this lecture and he wanted me to specifically to remind the group of a couple of things. This is both mapping and tracking skills. And I'll just go over them because they're all gems. Trauma is not what happened to your patient, rather how the story lives in that person. So this is getting back to believing them, but not colluding with them. PTSD needs a rite of passage, a ceremony. It's an ancient brain, a limbic brain, over 100 million years old. We get into fight, flight, and paralysis. So part of this thing is to get our patients out of paralysis into fight, flight, and then moving them up the energetic scale. So on a tantric level, we always want to help them find their lessons. You know, people that learn their same lessons their whole life and never get out of it because they've never found the gifts of those lessons. So have them learn the gift. Oh, I was an alcoholic. My father was an alcoholic. So now I help people with addictions get over their addictions, as an example. And then always remember the limbic brain requires some sort of ceremony, a rite of passage. It can be as simple as writing something down on a piece of paper that you want to activate, like I am gorgeous or I am powerful, and having them burn that in a ceremony the same day, why not today, and that let them activate that, let that start seeding and germinating. So always find a way to create a ceremony or the other languages of the soul. This is what the limbic brain PTSD needs. Some of these things you may be aware of, but I'll keep going. The shadow is the part of ourselves we project onto others, rather than recognize it in ourselves as disowned, the beautiful, the ugly, and the terrible, the terrifying. The mechanism of the shadow is projection, both personal and of humanity. In our world, there's a lot of projection. Just think of your likes and dislikes about our political system. And so if something really burns you up or your patient, that's a place to work in sooner rather than later, with permissions, etc. This is a mind-boggling one, the next one. Whatever needs to hide in the dark has no authentic power of its own. So there's like really nothing wrong with darkness. Us in the West have made up a thing that darkness is evil. It's only in the heart and minds of us Westerners. And so if something needs to hide in the dark, it's hiding there because it is afraid and it feeds off of fear. So please remember that when you're working with your patient, that whatever's hiding there has no authentic power of its own. Be curious and hold that space to go, no matter how ugly and terrifying or beautiful or disowned it is. And then just to remember, love can be defined as a joyful natural state which banishes fear. It's a verb. It's a state. If you bring a personal story to the collective, you eliminate the separation. I have a personal story with this about how I had severe, complex, repetitive PTSD, and part of the mechanism was my inability to think that I could connect with healthy humans as a healthy human. Just a footnote, let's seek healthy humans rather than normal humans. So I went to this course given by one of my other teachers of my many, Peter, and it was on working with very dark forces. And at the end of the course, I was just going to slip out to catch my bus to take me back home. And so I just waved to Peter to say goodbye and was going to leave. And he stopped the course and had everybody come and greet me. It was like a gauntlet of love and compassion. Everybody um, said goodbye to me, told me how valuable of a human I was, and connected with me. In the matter of 5 to 10 minutes, that rite of passage, that ceremony healed my PTSD. I had more therapy after that, but that was where the work was done. That was the healing. 5 to 10 minutes of ceremony. So getting back, so people in this trauma PTSD state feel like this is only happening to them. And when you bring it to the collective, all of a sudden they say, wow, it's just not me. This is a collective problem. This is in the collective, and I'm not alone here. And that is a healing mechanism. This is another favorite of mine, the next one. If you only take away a pain, then you take away on the karma. So if someone's having depression, which is painful, I remember a psychiatrist in IFM, functional medicine, said at a conference he was teaching 300 psychiatrists and asked any of them, do any of you in here treat pain? No one raised a hand. And psychiatry and mental health healing arts is all about pain, some of the most severe pain you can have. So you have, it's a tricky thing here, but when your patient is in pain, hold them in their pain and keep looking, keep pushing deeper. If you can hold that space with all of those 9 things we talked about and go deep and find out what needs to be healed. Otherwise, you're just putting a Band-Aid on something, and the patient may feel good when they left, and they could even be on a pain pill of some sort or whatever, but you haven't healed what really is the deep thing that needs to heal. So gate, go beyond the beyond. Keep going. And then when you get the lesson, the karma is no longer operative. It kind of disappears. So learn the lesson, find out what the lessons are, and remember to go to the gifts and a ceremony. But those ahas are powerful. Just another thing, there's Dr. David Hawkins who promoted this thing about muscle testing and other ways of finding out what is powerful and what isn't. In fact, one of his books is really currently popular with younger generations called Letting Go. But this is a medical doctor, and he measured different levels of vibration. And one of the lowest vibration was shame. And he felt that there was an inflection point between pride and courage. And so, and then you got these other ones up here. So moving your patient from shame, which is I am bad, to guilt, I did something bad, and moving them up to higher levels is an improvement. And this is the inflection point between an expanded consciousness or way of being and a contracted, between these two. right between courage and pride. So in my way of thinking, we have two brains. We have the brain that when it hears a rustle in the bush, when you're out walking, it's either a thief, a predator, like a, or like a jaguar or a snake in the bushes. And you're going to stay in that threat brain until your brain, you can verify that it's not a threat. And so if someone's in a threat brain, they're going to have all these thoughts that are the PTSD thoughts and these other thoughts. And the other brain is the healing brain, the brain of grace. So for instance, just that simple bumblebee at the beginning and the breathing, two methods I like to use to get my patients to be able to listen to what I'm saying. Because if they're in a threat brain, they will be interpreting what I'm saying totally in a different way than where they need to hear it. And when you're in the other non-threat brain, where your adrenals aren't squeezing and your amygdala isn't sending your thoughts to the wrong part, not the wrong, but the threat brain, the fear brain, and when that happens, the blood is going away from your gut. It goes to your large muscles so you can fight or flight, or you go into paralysis, and it's not going to your creative brain, your God brain, your mirror neuron brain, your gray matter. It's going to those places of survival and threat. So getting your patient out of the threat brain is something to do very important at the beginning, because this is where they can start learning the lessons and getting the gifts. And lastly here is that when your patient's in fight flight, improvement it may be an improvement from paralysis. It's a tiny step. When people take tiny steps, all of a sudden their world changes. After all, we're creating our world moment by moment. It's a new world. And when this starts happening and you start moving up to higher energetic levels, miracles start happening and you can get to the brain of can do. I know that was a lot of information, and fortunately, you can pause here and take a break. But I'm going to go straight back in. So what are the mechanisms of harmful forces? And some people will refer to that the mechanisms of evil. And they're contracts. And so this could be hummingbird medicine. So the four mechanisms are curses, attacks, traps, and ambushes. Curses are often imposed upon us. We're not able to give a good yes, and we can't say no. And so even when we can be born into generational curses. But curses are always your patient always derives a benefit from having a curse. So one curse would be that they say they can't do something like a sacred cow because they derive a benefit from it. So a sacred cow would be a curse. And if your patient feels like they've been cursed, believe them, but don't collude with them. When you have a contract or a curse, you always need to pay the price of the contract. All contracts need to be paid in full. You can also try to renegotiate them or rewrite them or take on the karma. So find out how you can pay off the contract and learn and receive the gifts. A curse is a consequence. It isn't a diagnosis. It's a symptom. So go beyond the curse and find out why the curse is there, what benefit your patient is deriving from that, and where it actually came from. You'll be surprised if, as you become a fabulous tracker. The next mechanism is attacks, and these are related to like psychic attacks to porous fields, somewhat like a empath, for instance. I'm an empath. So your patient may say, well, I feel like I have daggers in my legs, where I saw someone last week that had this. I'm hearing voices. They may be frankly psychotic, but where does the psychotic um, visions come from? Thoughts. They have to come from somewhere. And I know this is a slippery slope, so I'm going to just leave that, because some people are so psychotic that they're not ready to be um, get the great healing, and they need other modalities to get them to the place where they can be worked with. And it's often when you have psychic attacks, it's because of betrayal of a lover, a lover, a physical lover, a lover of ideas, a lover of projects. The next one is a trap. And I like to remind you, you always walk into a trap. And so when you walk into a trap, you're squandering your power. So don't do that. It's all about protection, critical thinking, and not squandering your power. And if you're in a trap, step out of it. Find out why you stepped in. What benefit do you have? Part of a trap can be a blind spot. And so when you have a blind spot and you walk into a trap, it's usually in your family of origin. And so if you or your patient can't see that, look into their clients, their patients, family, their parents, their grandparents, their great-grandparents. And as you dissect through those and a great tracker, you will all of a sudden determine what their blind spot is. It's right there, like the wart on your nose of a shadow. It's really easy to find. The last one, which is similar to a trap, is an ambush. It always involves a great betrayal. And as you walk into an ambush, you are the one that hurts yourself. So it's going beyond and being curious about what the contract was, why you have an ambush, and where the betrayal is, and how to pay that off or renegotiate it. So let's go back to this. We're going to grow our tracking and mapping skills. And now, no matter where you work, whether you pass out psychotropics, do EMDR, work with children and their parents, whatever field of medicine you are in, even non-mental health, you can learn all of these tools that will help you with your patient move forward. And I've already spoken enough, so this would be for further mentoring, for further offerings. So this slide's out of way, so let me go to it. Sorry about that. So with contracts, you can pay the contract off, renegotiate and find a newer, better contract. If you put the light of consciousness on it, its power goes away. Contracts often diminish after about 7 generations. So if you have a family curse, it's likely to disappear after 7 generations. And remember, if you breach or extract a contract, you haven't learned the lessons, you take on karma and nothing gets healed. All of a sudden, if you just keep working on a very reptile level, on a suture level, you're not moving into your patient into learning the great lessons that they were put here to learn and finding the great gifts and becoming the gift to the world that they were born into. So, to find out more for mentoring and community building or personal healing, you can email me directly, or better yet, go to medicalshamanism.com and sign up so that it's easier for me to manage this and to send out future offerings and build community. Now I'm going to close space. So I'm going to close my Viracocha, which is my protection, was also put over you to protect you. I can explain that in a future seminar or mentoring. Let's close the space now. To the winds of the south, great serpent, thank you for the healing light you bring to us, for helping us shed the deadness of our past, the way you shed your skin all at once, for protecting us in your coils of light. Thank you for teaching us the beauty way. To the winds of the west, Mother, Sister Jaguar, thank you for protecting our medicine space. We embrace your wisdom of teaching us the ways of peace and impeccability in the journey beyond death. Thank you for teaching us fearlessness in discernment in the jungles of our beliefs, thoughts, emotions, and feelings. To the winds of the north, hummingbird, grandmothers, grandfathers, ancient ones, our lineages. Thank you for supporting us here. Ancient ones, grandmothers, grandfathers, sharing this space with us. We listen for your whispers to us in the wind and to the sacred space within our hearts. Guide us with your grace. Thank you for teaching us stillness and flight and in chaos. The mystic, where all there is are possibilities. And feeding off nectar, the food we cook in the soul connection, in the soul kitchen. To the winds of the east, great eagle condor, thank you for taking us upon your wings to our highest path of destiny. Thank you for showing us the holy mountains and reminding us to envision our lives from this place. Thank you for allowing us to see the big picture and the minuteness of detail, showing us all we need to become to fly higher above any obstacle. To Pachamama, Gaia, Mother Earth, thank you, thank you, thank you, sweet Mother. We give you thanks as one of your children for holding us so sweetly in your womb of love and life as we heal all of our stories, our shadows, our fears, our PTSDs. Our reciprocal mandate to you is to become an earth keeper and honor you. Aho! Father, Son, Grandmother Moon, Great Star Nation, Star Brothers and Sisters, Great Spirit, you who are known by 1,000 names, the unnameable ones, the nameless ones, the void, you who are unknown yet not unknowable, to sing the song of life one more day. Thank you for attending this webinar Zoom presentation. To find out more, go to medicalshamanism.com so I can get your email and send out information about future offerings. I do personal work on healing and mentoring and group.